So, you know what happened? Well, let me tell you the whole story. It's about this big thing that happened in my life. Brace yourself, it's quite a tale. So, there's me, Grace, and my husband, Jack. We had this cozy little house, where we both worked from home. It was nice because we could take breaks whenever we felt like it. Life was good until my brother-in-law Benjamin dropped a bomb on us. One day, out of nowhere, Benjamin drops by and casually mentions that we've sold our house. Can you imagine? Jack and I were so shocked, we couldn't even find words to respond. But you know who was the most shocked of all? My mother-in-law. Oh boy, when she heard about it, she was not happy. She started bombarding poor Benjamin with questions like, "Why would you do such a thing? And weren't you supposed to come pick me up?" She was really upset, let me tell you. Now, let me give you a little background on my mother-in-law. She's always been a bit, let's say, traditional. She couldn't wrap her head around the idea that Jack and I were working from home. Every time she saw us lounging around during our breaks, she'd give us this disapproving look and say things like, "Why aren't you two going out to work?" It was exhausting, really. We tried to explain to her that we were indeed working, but she just wouldn't listen. She was so fixated on the idea that we weren't being productive members of society. And to make matters worse, she'd compare us to Benjamin, who was living off his wife's wealth. But of course, we couldn't tell her that, because Benjamin had asked us to keep it a secret. Anyway, back to the story. My mother-in-law kept insisting that Benjamin was going to come pick her up and take her to his fancy house. But deep down, we knew that was never going to happen. Benjamin had made it pretty clear that he had no intention of living with his mother. So, you can imagine our surprise when Benjamin called us one day out of the blue, saying he was coming over for the weekend. We were puzzled, to say the least. And my mother-in-law? Oh, she was over the moon. She started packing her bags and getting all excited about moving to Benjamin's house. But Jack and I knew better. We knew that Benjamin wasn't coming to take her away. He was probably just visiting for some other reason. But try telling that to my mother-in-law. She was convinced that Benjamin was finally coming to rescue her from our unemployed household. And that's where things stand. My mother-in-law is still hopeful that Benjamin will swoop in and whisk her away to his mansion. But until then, Jack and I are stuck dealing with her paranoid thoughts and unrealistic expectations. Oh, the joys of family drama. So, ever since my mother-in-law moved in with us, things took a turn. She pretty much did whatever she pleased, hardly lifting a finger to help around the house, and just relied on the allowance we gave her. We didn't want to force her to stay if she wasn't happy, so when she demanded to leave and wait for her brother, we obliged. The weekend rolled around, and there they were, my brother-in-law Benjamin and his wife, stepping into our home with these strangely friendly smiles plastered on their faces. I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling creeping up on me. And then, like she was waiting for a cue, my mother-in-law appeared, all excited to see them. She wasted no time in painting me as the household failure, complaining about how I couldn't handle the chores and how Jack ignored her. It was like she was trying to gain sympathy. Jack tried to defend us, but Benjamin seemed skeptical, as if he knew something we didn't. Despite our annoyance, we played nice and led them to the living room. But then my mother-in-law started demanding tea, acting like I should be the one making it. When I hesitated, she started fake crying, playing the victim card like a pro. Once I served the tea, Benjamin dropped the bombshell. They'd sold their house. Jack and I were floored, but my mother-in-law was the most shocked of all. She couldn't understand why they'd do such a thing without coming to pick her up first. Benjamin tried to explain, saying they were in debt and had no choice. He laughed it off like it was no big deal, leaving Jack and me feeling frustrated. They begged to stay with us until they found a new place, promising to leave within a month. We reluctantly agreed, but made them promise to stick to the deadline. After they left to pack, my mother-in-law sat quietly, lost in thought. Jack and I exchanged looks, unsure of what the future held with our unexpected house guests. I had assumed that she was still feeling very surprised the following day when the couple's belongings arrived quickly. There was so much stuff, we weren't sure where to put it all. We started worrying because we might have to sell some things or rent a storage locker. While we were discussing this and moving Benjamin's things, my mother-in-law dropped a big surprise on us. She said, "I've been thinking, won't we be safer in the future if Benjamin stays here, and you too," referring to my husband and me, "leave? Can't you?" My husband and I were shocked by my mother-in-law's sudden statement. She continued, "If you insist, I can tolerate Jack, my husband, staying, but I don't need a wife who can't do anything. Get a divorce then. The space that Grace, that's me, was occupying can be used for all these packages." My mother-in-law seemed eager for my husband to agree with her demand. My husband reacted as he usually did, completely surprised. Then, my brother-in-law and his wife arrived. My mother-in-law greeted them happily, but I was still shaken by her earlier words. My husband decided to ignore the situation for the moment and asked his brother to deal with the packages, which were more than expected. He suggested, "Try to reduce the number, rent a locker, or sell some if you have to." My brother-in-law glared at my husband and responded defensively, "What are you talking about? These are important packages. How could I sell them? And what if someone steals them or they get damaged in a locker? Are you going to take responsibility, bro?" My husband shook his head in frustration at his brother's selfish behavior. He then reminded him, "This is our house, you know. It's normal that you should endure some inconvenience. If you don't like it, find a place to live quickly and leave." At that moment, my mother-in-law interrupted, shouting, "Didn't I just say if you two are not happy with Benjamin and the rest, you can leave? You're basically freeloaders. You're not needed in this house. Benjamin is trying to start a business, and all you two do is loaf around the house doing so-called remote work. You're a nuisance." My mother-in-law seemed to be claiming authority over the house. My husband and I exchanged looks of disbelief. My brother-in-law and his wife, initially surprised by my mother-in-law's words, started to smirk and entertain the idea of staying. They said, "Mom, that's actually not a bad idea. It's a hassle to look for a place, so we could live here. Sell this house to us, right, Ava?" They directed their request to my mother-in-law. "I feel uncomfortable with you two around, so it would be helpful if you sold this place to us. Plus, it seems like our mother-in-law is on our side. So, sell this place to us." My husband and I were dumbfounded by their words. My husband began to object, but my mother-in-law interrupted, gloating, "See, both Benjamin and Ava are saying the same thing. So, what will you do, Jack? If you're going to divorce, you can stay here." My mother-in-law looked triumphantly at me, expecting a reaction. I prepared myself to respond, but my husband spoke up first. He said firmly, "Why do you get to say whatever you want? Why does Grace have to leave?" My husband's face was red with anger as he raised his voice. "Don't shout like that," my mother-in-law scolded him. "It's better without a burden around, isn't it?" My mother-in-law retorted sharply, but my husband responded with frustration in his voice. "You don't understand anything. This is Grace's house." At my husband's words, my mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and his wife gasped in surprise. My husband continued, adding to the tension, "This is the house that Grace bought for our life together." My mother-in-law seemed incredulous, sneering in disbelief as she looked at me. "Unbelievable. Grace just sits in front of the computer all day. She doesn't even do housework. Seriously, wasn't my allowance coming out of my pension? Otherwise, there's no way Grace could afford to give me $800 a month. Moreover," she continued, "Grace is the one managing my pension, isn't she? You might have told Jack otherwise, but I'm sure you're dipping into my pension." She puffed up her chest and glared at me. In response, I glared back, refusing to be intimidated. "It's true I've succeeded as a business owner," I asserted. "You're lying. Divorce this lying wife already. You should live here with me, Benjamin and Ava. Besides, there's no proof that Grace is earning money, my mother-in-law insisted. But I had evidence to the contrary. I pulled out my paycheck and showed it to her, leaving my mother-in-law and Benjamin and his wife speechless. We've not used any of Mom's pensions since she moved in here. If Mom ever wanted to leave, Grace has been managing it so she could live independently. But instead, Mom, you've been bossing Grace around, interfering with her work. You're the problem. If you don't like Grace, you should leave right now. I don't believe any of this, my mother-in-law exclaimed. We don't mind if you and Benjamin temporarily stay, but some patience should be expected. We didn't want you to live here in the first place. We only agreed because you begged us, Jack interjected, glaring at Benjamin and his wife. Benjamin and his wife broke out in a cold sweat, not used to Jack raising his voice. Just kidding, but you sure are earning a lot, huh? I wish you could teach me some business tricks, right, Ava? Jack joked, trying to diffuse the tension. While it's true we were worried about living with our sister-in-law, it seems like she's a good person after all, Benjamin's wife added with a smile. But my mother-in-law remained unyielding. Don't act so high and mighty. You're just a bum. Enough, Jack. You should leave too. You should go outside and see how harsh this world can be, she insisted, filled with conviction, refusing to listen to anything we said. Afterward, Jack and I sighed in disbelief. Well, if that's how you feel, we'll pack our things and move to a new house. You guys will be stuck with a mortgage, but if that's okay with you, don't come crying to us for help, I said firmly. My mother-in-law turned beet red at our words and yelled at us to get out. Wait, you can't be serious. We don't have to do that, do we? Benjamin and his wife protested, trying to stop us. Yes, if you two are here, we're safe, my mother-in-law declared, giving us a fierce look. Don't you dare talk back, Benjamin. You're going to be a CEO, aren't you? I don't mind you using my pension, so just start a company and show us how successful you can become. I'll show you what happens when you defy us. My mother-in-law's words were intense, filled with a sense of authority. Hearing this, we decided it was best to no longer get involved with her or Benjamin's family and left the house. Of course, the mortgage on the house remained, but we changed the ownership to Benjamin's name. Some time had passed since then. While there was some residual dissatisfaction from that incident, having been freed from my mother-in-law's sarcasm, we had resumed our normal routine. Just when we were working from home in our new apartment, as usual, my mother-in-law called my husband, crying. Benjamin has taken my pension and disappeared. He hasn't come back in a week. Ava and I are left alone in the house and we're in trouble. Please help us, she wept. After my husband calmed my mother-in-law, he asked why Benjamin had gone missing. I gave all of my pension to Benjamin for his startup, but he ended up spending it all on gambling. When I confronted him about it, he disappeared. She cried out desperately. Since my mother-in-law couldn't continue the conversation through her sobbing, the phone was handed to Ava. Could you please call us back? We can't live like this. Ever since Benjamin failed his startup and sold the house we were living in, our parents have disowned us. My dad won't forgive us for selling that house. We haven't been able to reach either our dad or mom since, Ava pleaded with my husband. At the sight of them, my husband muttered disgustedly, I knew it. That's unfortunate, but don't involve us. We warned you when we left, didn't we? Even if you come crying to us, we won't help you. You can report Benjamin as missing to the police. It's none of our business. With that, he hung up. I was shocked, but my husband said, they got what they deserved, and I agreed. After that, they called my husband's cell phone many times. When my husband, frustrated, answered the phone, Ava would cry about not knowing how to report Benjamin as missing. We were surprised she didn't know and gave her advice to call the police. However, they still couldn't find Benjamin. Just when we thought they might not find him, we heard that Benjamin had been arrested for bank robbery in another state. Apparently, he did it to repay his debt. It seems it wasn't his first offense, and he would likely face actual jail time. Ava can't go back to her parents' home and is still living with my mother-in-law in that house. It's uncertain whether or not she will divorce Benjamin. That's probably the least of her concerns right now. She registered with a temp agency and is struggling with her first job ever, but she's somehow making ends meet every day. As for my mother-in-law, Benjamin took all of her pension, and now she has to repay his debt. She has also started working part-time to repay the debt. My husband and I express sympathy for my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family, but we have made it clear that we have no intention of helping them, and we have cut off all communication. They must be tasting the harsh realities of life that my mother-in-law always talked about. Despite the changes since my mother-in-law moved in with us, my husband and I are glad that we have returned to our peaceful days. In the aftermath of the tumultuous events involving my mother-in-law, Benjamin, and his wife Ava, our lives settled into a rhythm of tranquility. The echoes of their troubles reverberated briefly in our minds, but soon dissipated into the background noise of our daily routines. As we navigated through our days, the memories of the drama slowly faded, replaced by the comforting familiarity of our peaceful existence. Yet, the lessons learned from that turbulent chapter lingered, serving as a constant reminder of the importance of resilience and self-reliance. With each passing day, my husband and I found solace in the stability of our lives, cherishing the simple pleasures of shared laughter, quiet evenings, and moments of connection. We reveled in the freedom to pursue our passions and dreams without the burden of external expectations or demands. Meanwhile, the repercussions of Benjamin's actions continued to unfold, casting a shadow over the lives of my mother-in-law and Ava. Despite their efforts to rebuild and move forward, they found themselves grappling with the harsh realities of financial hardship and fractured relationships. For my mother-in-law, the betrayal she experienced at the hands of her own son left wounds that ran deep, testing her resilience and resolve. Yet, in the face of adversity, she persevered, embracing the challenges that lay ahead with a newfound determination. Similarly, Ava found herself at a crossroads, navigating the complexities of her relationship with Benjamin while striving to carve out a path of independence and self-sufficiency. As she embarked on her journey of self-discovery, she confronted her own vulnerabilities and strengths, seeking to redefine her sense of identity and purpose. Amidst the chaos and uncertainty, my husband and I remained steadfast in our commitment to each other, drawing strength from the bond that held us together. Together, we weathered the storms of life, finding refuge in the sanctuary of our love and the unwavering support of our shared dreams. As the seasons changed and time marched forward, we reflected on the twists and turns of fate that had brought us to this moment. Though the road ahead was uncertain, we faced the future with courage and conviction, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would navigate them together, hand in hand. And so, as we embraced the dawn of a new day, we did so with hearts filled with hope and gratitude, ready to embark on the next chapter of our journey, wherever it may lead. For in the end, it was not the trials we faced or the obstacles we overcame that defined us, but the love that bound us together, illuminating our path with its timeless grace.